Well, I just had to make a few other videos. Now I can make this one because I made an earlier version of this and I was completely bored. I think I just got the Shakti moving out of me, and we could talk a little bit about some of these deep vertical states. I'm just going to cut right to the end because I'm much more interested in that. We'll start at the end and work our way back. And so we're talking about samadhi. And if you can think of samadhi, it's like this endless well. This endless well into a big, vast, endless space. Samadhi is not a box. It's not like this dimension of reality that we live in until you realize that it is. But that's another thing. It's not like this box world, which is also what Jung called it when he had his NDE. I've always liked that term. Samadhi is beyond thought, beyond time, beyond space, beyond these sorts of dimensions. That's why it's so difficult to describe it. That's why when people go into and experience it for the first time, and this has happened at many meditation classes, they come out and they say, I know I was just somewhere. I was sleeping, but it wasn't sleep. And they'll say it just like that, which is wild how consistent that has been for 24 years in different countries. And so, yeah, it is a deep state that belies lots of linguistic interpretation. So, okay, we're in samadhi. We're in the state in which consciousness is experiencing itself, in which consciousness has no objects. And even if it has objects, they're not ruffling anything. We are experiencing the pond of the mind, really more the pond of awareness, without any ripples. But interestingly enough, that well has dimensions to it, or at least because we're in these human bodies, we have these human nervous systems, the experience is as if it does have those dimensions to it. And the bottomless bottom of this well, because this is a well that actually doesn't have a bottom. But if we could give it a bottom, it would be called Nirbija Samadhi, or in English, Seedless Samadhi, the cleanest burning Samadhi state, the Samadhi state in which sometimes people may just go there. Many people will have a sense of progressing through different subtleties over time until they get down to that experience. But it's as if bit by bit, sheath by sheath, all sorts of the things that we might not even notice are part of our experience at first get removed. An obvious one is really the awareness of the body. That's the most obvious because we're very used to what it feels like to have a body. So having that relax is one thing. Less obvious, a sense of space altogether. That element goes. The sense of time. That's an interesting thing to actually experience, like the sense of time in itself as an object. But anyways, that goes. The sense, I think even more subtle, the sense of being, I'll just use the word soul, the sense of being a soul, or the sense of being any kind of individual at all, even if this is way below your name and your biographical self, that's kind of up there too. That of course has to go as well. That sense of being anything in particular at all, and once that goes, there's our bottomless bottom. We're back to square one, 13.5 billion years, whatever it is, pre-Big Bang. Not everyone uses the Big Bang model. I'm not even sure if I should. Pre-Genesis, pre the and the word moved upon the waters. The word was God. That's Nirbija Samadhi, at least poetically put. And it was kind of bandied about my ashram in particular that if you could experience this Nirbija Samadhi even once, I didn't say for how long, but if you could experience it even once, that somehow is punching your ticket to self-realization or enlightenment in this lifetime. I don't know if that's true, but I get why someone would say that. I get why the sentiment is there, and it's as if that's the use of the. I'm not a state chaser, and I don't think people should chase states. That said, whenever someone would tell me don't chase that, of course I would, whatever it was. So, anyways, but that's the practical use of hitting some of those notes, hitting some of those really like deeply vertical, really, I don't like to use the word exotic for different reasons, but hitting those exotic, seemingly exotic spaces, is that they achieve in a very short, timeless time what would take God knows how long. And that's the sense, prove it, I don't know how to prove it. That's the sense. You come out of that bath, like Samadhi is a bath, and with those sort of different points upon the vertical axis, it's like each bath is progressively more efficient in cleaning things out at a fundamental level. And Nirbija Samadhi really cleans it. So you come out of that and wow, newborn, not just newborn baby, newborn soul. And of course, there's such a, for most of us, self included, the habit of putting the self back on is so deeply entrenched that yes, again, back on it goes. But with those really deep states, it really makes whatever coat of self you're putting on noticeably more porous, even at that point, which is so damn useful. Because, in some ways, that's what we're doing with cultivating Samadhi, is just poking enough holes in the structure of that gives rise to existential suffering, that at some point, it just falls apart. We don't make it fall. Going back to that analogy of enlightenment is an accident, but spiritual practice makes us accident prone, or enlightenment is like a mango ripening and falling off the tree. You don't make it happen, yada yada yada. But you could put a lot of sunlight on that mango. So that's the use, is time efficiency. And again, like someone who's asking now I don't think that one has to do like a long retreat program. They can be very impractical. In fact, I was extremely lucky. I was 19. And 18 actually, and I, somehow was allowed to be in, kind of a short-term ashram situation that just so happened to have opportunities that I could do to work off my tuition for one of those long courses. I mean, that was great. I did work my butt off for 18 months ahead of a 6 months course, but that's rare. That's an exception. So I don't think that people have to do these like 10, 12, 14-hour meditation days for 5 months or whatever to get good effects. But you can get a lot of effect from 1 to 2 hours every day. My goodness, that's a lot. But if you do have the wherewithal, and you do somehow have this strange eccentric burr in your bonnet to do such a thing, and it's an itch that needs to get scratched, in this life, yeah, that's the value of it. And that's a value of like a month, even 2 weeks, is that when you have length of time, it tends to build on itself. And I do think there's sort of an exponential deepening that occurs when you kind of pile, in a good environment, mind you, when you kind of pile these sorts of deep meditations one onto the next. And there's one more thing about Nirbija Samadhi, and again, this is very subjective. I know it all is. But one of the things that led to me getting into meditation at the time that I did, and going to an ashram at a fairly young age, was that at age 13 I had a near-death experience. Mother died in the crash. It was hard. But on the NDE was definitely a softener. And what struck me most about the near-death experience wasn't a lot of the, common, life review, this, that, or the other thing that takes place, but it was actually Samadhi. And I didn't know it was Samadhi at the time. And not only that, the experience, and this goes for everybody, and this includes, I think, people who have get a terminal cancer diagnosis or other things like that. Your awareness is so crisp and vivid, like a newborn soul, like a newborn baby. And with an NDE kind of being thrown into Samadhi, even more so. That moment back then at age 13, and then all the subsequent iterations of Nirbija Samadhi, it's as if that is basically the same space. That's the same depth. And that was what made me hungry. So anyhow, bit of a digression. Again, you don't have to chase it. Actually, the harder you chase it, in some way, it's like the harder you kind of appear chase it. Like, am I going to have Nirbija today? I know, frustratingly so, a bit more elusive it happens to be. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with having goals. Okay, that's different than, I would say that. Some people say there is something wrong with it. I would say there's nothing wrong with having goals. That's a different thing than that other kind of chasing. But it's kind of like a goal that you sort of, wake up in the morning, drop it in the bucket, forget about it, go on and do your program, do your yoga asanas, a little bit of nadi shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, and go into whatever length of meditation session you have ahead of you. Rinse and repeat, when you get done with work. And I think you can't do much better than that. And if you have that desire for Nirbija Samadhi in your heart, especially if you have it in your heart, actually sometimes when you're doing the practice, I think if you live long enough, it's a fait accompli. And by long enough, I don't mean you have to work your tail off for 50 years. If you do something that's effective and you do it regularly, and your heart's in it, then maybe I'm naively optimistic here, but if all those elements are going at once, then yeah, it's not that much time. So hope you enjoyed my little ramble, and maybe I'll talk more about Nirbija Samadhi someday. I doubt I will. So if you like these videos, feel free to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and that's about it. I have a meditation class coming up in August. I have another one tomorrow, which actually, when I post this, it won't be tomorrow. It happened already. And I keep all my links to my work at the bottom of the video. So have a lovely day.